It's now my pleasure to introduce someone who really, without him, we wouldn't be here. Back in 1993, when there was a congressional resolution to approve a memorial to the victims of communism, one member stood up very, very firmly and strongly and said, yes, it must be done. And that individual was Congressman Dana Rohrabacher of California. He's continued to speak out for freedom and democracy all over the world. So please welcome an old and dear and good friend of ours, Congressman Dana Rohrabacher.
Yeah, this just about didn't happen. I can tell you that I remember when Lev Dobryansky brought this up originally, and it was going to be a real struggle, and we were going to have the memorial and even maybe have a museum to the victims of communism. And people started emerging all over the city to fight Lev Dobryansky to prevent him from doing that. We had some real stalwarts behind our effort, and we were just lucky we had people like Tom Lantos, who are another hero in this fight in the Cold War, who are with us. But it actually took us, we had to make a deal in order to get this statue and this memorial actually done. And it was that the administration was going to go to Russia. They needed a certain piece of legislation to be rushed through the Foreign Affairs Committee. In order to do that, they needed to have unanimous consent to waive the rules, to have the time to get the legislation through. And I just stepped forward and said, no, I'm going to object unless we get a Victims of Communism memorial. And that's how we got it. And so that's, sometimes it's not just the great proclamations of principle and those type of huge stands that are being made against some onslaught that change the day, but sometimes it's people who are able to maneuver through a bureaucratic maze. And I will tell you that Tom Lantos, during that time, he did that for so many people who are seeking their freedom. And of course, Lev Dobryansky laid the intellectual foundation for what we're doing today. And then, of course, it took Lee Edwards, a hardened political activist who knew how to get things organized and get things done, before we actually were able to put the project and bring it to fruition. So today I'm here to thank all of those of you who were involved in this. And as we look at what this statue is and what this memorial is, it reminds us that the Cold War may be over, but the fight against communism goes on. We have, this was never, and I know I'm making a lot of people mad at me when I say this was never a fight against Russia. This was a fight against communism that captured Russia just like other captive nations. And it is up to us to try to work with the Russian people to try to defeat the remnants of communism that still threaten the world. And especially, I say that, especially when we see that this statue is resembles the statue that was in Tiananmen Square, where the freedom-loving people of China were slaughtered and were ultimately denied what the people of Russia got, which was the elimination of communism. Perhaps the greatest tragedy in my lifetime is that at Tiananmen Square, the United States did nothing to suggest to the Chinese leadership they weren't going to get away with this. I will tell you right now, this did not happen under Ronald Reagan's watch. Under Ronald Reagan's watch, communism was disintegrating because that was his number one goal, was to defeat the Soviet Union. Again, not Russia, the Soviet Union. And when Reagan left office, and I'm very, very proud to have served as one of Ronald Reagan's speechwriters for 7 years of my life. That's probably the thing I'm the proudest of in my entire life. But when Reagan left office, this Tiananmen Square was ready to happen, but Ronald Reagan was not president. And I've told this many times, I think if Ronald Reagan would have been president, we'd have had a different world today, and communism would not be the dominant force in China, and thus China would not be threatening the world peace. The fact is that when Tiananmen, and people say, what would Reagan have done? Would he have sent in the troops? No. What Ronald Reagan would have done is, when we knew that the troops were amassing to go into Tiananmen Square and slaughter the democracy movement, Ronald Reagan would have picked up the phone or sent a telegram saying, if you do this, no more economic investment in your country, no more transfer of technologies and capital, no more open market to your goods, the deal is off. That's what Reagan would have said. And they wouldn't have invaded. But what did, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to say bad things about Republicans, but what did Ronald Reagan's Republican successor say? Nothing! He said nothing! And that was the greatest message of all, because they went into Tiananmen Square and they slaughtered the democracy movement, and you know what price they paid? Nothing! Of course the communists, if we had had that policy during Ronald Reagan's era, the Soviet Union would still be alive and well and dominating all of Eastern Europe and still threatening the peace of the world. Thank God we had Ronald Reagan when we had him, and we're looking around for another one this next time out too. And finally, let me just note that today I see Ronald Reagan saw the Soviet Union as the greatest threat. That was his target. If we are going to succeed, we need to understand that today, radical Islam, which is at our throats, murdering our people, that and China have to be our #1 goals in to trying to defeat those forces on this planet. If we just saying we're going to be against everything that's bad isn't going to do it. We've got to make sure that we make the alliances and do what's necessary to defeat this dual threat to all of us and all of mankind. You know, we remember the people who fought today, victims and those who died. We remember the victims. We also remember those who struggled to make sure that the victimization of human beings ended. And there were many such people. I'm going to tell you one story, and then I'm going to get off of here because I know you're tired of Dana Rohrabacher. But the fact is that when I was a young man, when I was a 9-year-old boy, I lived in Japan. My father was a Marine pilot. He flew spy missions along the China coast. We were in a little enclave outside a city at a little base called Iwakuni. And there was this little compound, and we were there with the other families of people who were flying spy missions along the coast of Japan, of China. So we were a tight-knit group of families there, and right across the little dirt road from my family was another family, a pilot, who, when he was flying his missions, my dad wasn't flying, and I remember them very well because they had a little monkey, and their kids were my age. We used to play together. And then one day I came back, and the family was in tears. It was havoc and chaos. And I still remember this as a 9-year-old boy, because the father, the pilot, was shot down doing one of his missions near the Chinese coastline, and he was shot down. And of course, in the annals of military history, he is in the record as his plane crashed because of mechanical difficulties. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of Americans who lost their lives during the Cold War. We know about the ones who lost their lives overtly in Vietnam and Korea and elsewhere where we fought. We know that. But there were others, there's so many others that did the job that needed to be done and paid the price, and their names aren't even on the record now. We remember all of these people, and we know that as long as America is a force for freedom in the world, freedom, the people who love freedom have a chance against their tyrants. Let us recommit ourselves to what this is, and remember, until there is freedom in China, this lovely lady will remind us that the victims of communism will never be revenged until there is freedom in China. God bless you.